Hey guys, welcome back. In this video, I'm going to show you one of my recent builds, which was a front foyer bench with a little bit of storage above and below. So here's what the entryway looked like before. Initially they had some closet doors there, which they had taken out a number of years ago and always intended on putting some type of bench in. So when I saw the place initially, I was able to take some measurements and pre-assemble my cabinet boxes for the bottom and top. So when I got on site for the first day, I just cut away the baseboards, I marked out where the studs were, and then I cut down some 1/2-inch sanded plywood, and this is what I was going to use to line the floors so that later on we could put hooks anywhere and not worry about it, missing a stud or just being in the drywall. So once my wall panels were securely attached, I built a little base just out of some 2x4s, which I leveled and then secured my cabinet bench on top. So the base cabinet as well as the upper is made out of 3/4 inch plywood, just so it's a little bit more rigid. Now the upper plywood box I made 24 inches tall. And after speaking with the client, they wanted to adjust that to be a little bit smaller so they could push the upper cabinets higher up and leave a little bit more headroom. So it's just a matter of cutting down the height of the box and then reattaching that top piece of 3/4 inch plywood. So once the upper box was recut, I attached a little block on the wall to help me put the upper cabinets in, made sure it was level, and then secured that right through the back into some studs. And then it was time to trim out the inside of this built-in. I'm just using 1x4 finger jointed pine for this. Along the top of the bench, I actually used a 1x6 just because I thought it would look a little bit beefier and have a bit of a thicker base. And yeah, it's just pre-primed finger jointed pine, a really nice material, and I'm just brad nailing it right to the plywood backing. And then we also decided to add some additional horizontal trim just to cap off where the hooks would eventually be installed. I then moved on to building the face frame for the upper cabinet. So there's a lot of fancy ways you can attach a face frame to your cabinet. You can use lamello clips and biscuits, things like that. But the fastest and easiest way is to just face nail it with a brad nailer and go back later and fill those holes. So once my piece of crown molding was nailed in, I went around all of the joints and used caulking to help hide that transition. And if you don't caulk your joints, like between all of the trim, eventually you're going to have little shadow gaps between where your trim is and the back wall. And even if you paint in there, it still won't look good. So I caulk over all of my joints, and then you can also see here I'm using a putty and I'm going over all of my brad nails. And if you use the right type of putty that's non-shrink, once you paint over, you'll never be able to tell that there were any brad nails used. So once the built-in was fully primed, I was back at my shop and using a biscuit joiner to build my bench top, which I'm making out of walnut. So you'll notice here that the ends of my boards don't line up, and this is intentional. I'm gluing together the sections of board that work the best together. So that has the same grain characteristic, they have nice joints, it's not warped. And eventually I'll be cutting off the ends of these boards so you'll never be able to tell. So the clients changed their mind about the crown molding and wanted to go with just a flat look instead. And so the crown molding was spaced off of the ceiling, and so this affected the door height of the cabinet above. And so I rebuilt a face frame here, which was about 2 inches taller than the previous one. So once I had the height of my new cabinet doors, it was time to work on them. Here I'm cutting a groove for an MDF panel which will slide into the, frame around the door. I used 45-degree cuts in the corners for the door faces, and this made it a little bit difficult when gluing it up because when you're applying pressure, the sides just want to slide. And so I did have a ratchet system that basically went around the 4 corners and held them all tight. But it was still a little bit annoying during glue up. So I think in the future I would use more of a mortise and tenon style attachment for these cabinet door faces. So when cutting my walnut top to the right size, I put my wood spacers around the outside, cut my bench top slightly oversized, and then traced exactly where my cut had to be. And I did this because the opening was not perfectly square. And so this would allow me to get a perfect reveal on each side and actually fit it to this space. And then I also added a walnut strip along the front edge just to give the appearance that the top was a little bit thicker than it actually was. And the piece that I put on has a slight bevel so that when you reach under, you're not, scraping your hand on the sharp edge, and it gives a little bit of grip when opening the lid. So when I was trying to install the doors, I was running into some problems. It just didn't seem to be fitting in, and I've installed cabinet doors before, and I couldn't figure out why it was so hard to clip in. Well, it turns out that I had the mounting brackets the wrong way, and so I had to unscrew them, flip them around, and reinstall them. And once I did that, they clipped in right away. Once I attached my doors, I applied 3 coats over a day of an off-white called Greek Villa, and I didn't get any footage of this because, believe it or not, watching paint dry isn't the most entertaining. So here's the finish I initially used on the bench top. It's a semi-gloss, varathane, water-based finish, and I was pretty underwhelmed. I felt like the colors of the walnut were fairly muted. So I ended up actually sanding this off and refinishing the bench top with a different product, which you'll see here shortly. So I got the hardware mounted for the bench top and got that installed. And then I used my laser to attach the back hooks, which I got from Lee Valley. So I ended up using a mineral oil on the walnut bench top, which, as you can see, really makes the color pop and show through.